Hey Ryan, thanks for doing this afternoon.
Hey Chris, how you doing? You're welcome.
Good, good. First off, I don't think we've had a chance to talk to you since you took the job, and so I guess I'd open with the fact that how do you feel like you've done when it comes to maybe settling into the position? And then secondly, if you could follow up with just some thoughts on how things have fallen together for you guys so far.
Sure. Settling's probably maybe an aggressive term. I don't know that that's happened yet, but it's been great. It's been a real exciting venture for me. Familiar with a lot of people in the building already over my years in the business. Obviously, had some connections with the coaching staff that came in. A lot of great guys there, and I've known Elliot for a long time over our careers. And so for me, it's just trying to come in, find a way that I can add any value to the organization, be a resource, continue to learn myself, and also try to help us get back to where this organization needs to get.
And then just if you could kind of run down some of the standouts, the highlights, I guess, for you over the first couple days here.
I think the highlights, uh, this is a long process. If you guys have heard, the draft starts probably 18 months prior to that draft actually occurring, is when that process for these prospects begins. And for our scouts, that's when it happens too. And so I think one of the highlights is just seeing all the work that goes in behind the scenes, the time away from home by the scouts, the amount of reports, the investigations, the end of the person, the calls, all that stuff it's just a huge amount of work that really kind of largely goes unseen and unnoticed, but it's paramount into us making these decisions. So the highlight for me is when the guys that you select and you feel like fit some of the fabric of the organization, when you're able to acquire those players, it's kind of like that's the exciting part is the culmination of that whole process. And now here they are as a chance to come help your team.
Thank you.
Next question, Ian Steele.
Hey Ryan, good to talk to you. I'm wondering if there's one common theme that you guys are looking for in this draft with the players you're bringing in right now. What is that theme?
You know, it's this idea in that from free agency and now through the draft, there's a they're not always going to be perfect and fit exactly to the criteria, but the most that we can sit there and talk about that we're adding guys who love playing football, guys who are great teammates. We all want talented players, we do, but there's an idea here that can't be overstated enough is that if you don't get the person right, then a lot of that other stuff can go to the wayside. And I think we've been trying to be very intentional about the people, about some of the people to build the foundation that Coach Vrabel and his vision has here for this football team. That started in free agency, and that's been a major emphasis for us as we've gotten into this draft process.
And next question, Andrew Callahan.
Hey Ryan, it's good to speak with you. Thank you for taking the time. First of all, did Mike put you up to this? Stacy, how do we get the benefit of talking to Ryan Cowden this afternoon?
So what happened was, I think somebody made a major error, and my name wasn't supposed to be in the rotation, and somehow it got slid in there, and at that point it was too late, so they didn't have a choice. So I think somebody made an error totally on that.
All right, well, we got lucky. I'm curious if you can just kind of give us the cliff notes, the guys that you take today. Obviously starting with Craig and then all the way up to Andres here, and specifically with Andres being a warm weather kicker coming to New England.
Yeah, sure. Look, Craig's a player that we had some great exposures at the East-West game. Craig was able to come in here. He's a great person, a high level of character, a really smart football player. I think the communication skills that he possesses at the safety position are something that sets him apart. Cal's had a history of having, really good communicators in their program from the backfield for the defensive secondary standpoint. So that's a little bit about Craig. Just a great person and a high level communicator at the safety position. Josh has an amazing story. Josh has faced a ton of adversity in his life. Josh is eager and looking forward to continue to be coached, continue to develop some of the traits and skills that he possesses. Josh has had a relationship with Coach, our defensive line coach, Coach McMillan. They've had a relationship for a long time, and it helped us understand the picture of Josh too. A lot of ways. Again, going about investing in people. You guys have probably heard Coach Vrabel talk about that. Investing in the people. It's what we want to do once they become a part of our team. And then as we get into farther. Sorry, I moved this out of my pocket here. As we get into when we took Swinson he really had an interesting career at LSU. He kind of started and was kind of in the back end of things, behind some good players, but he always had a knack to rush the passer. And I think over the last 2 years, he's got more opportunities to do that. And, he brings a little bit different, his ability on the edge to create pressures, have some disruption out there from a hard program at LSU. And then with the kicker, like we're excited. We thought that he has Burgos has a big leg. He's really talented. I know that's the idea about kickers a lot of times is strong legs, and that's obviously paramount. I think the weather is one of those things where we all talk about it, but is there really a metric or a measurement that says what is the production in cold weather games? If I'm not mistaken, I think Nick Folk kicked at Arizona, maybe, and did okay for a long time here to some degree. So I think I think what you want to focus on is what's the mindset and the makeup of the person, what's the talent level, how explosive is the ball coming off his foot, and then it's just like anything. I don't think we can base that on this guy had this exposure. Not a lot of guys that you're going to find. Your pool would really shrink if you said, "Let me go find cold weather kickers," and who are they?
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan.
No problem.
And next question, Greg Bedard.
Hey, Ryan. A little bit more on Craig. I mean, for what it's worth, I guess out of all your picks, probably the consensus out there, he was probably the biggest reach. But obviously, you had last night, you had this morning. It would seem that he's a guy that you targeted. What did you see about him? And also, does he have nickel versatility? Do you have a specific spot in mind for him?
Sure. I don't think like I said, I think last night I spoke to some people and I don't want to pigeonhole Craig or any of our players into one spot. I think Craig's a safety. I think he has the versatility to play a lot of roles that the safety position requires. And, as I mentioned before, the communication skills is something that sets him apart. Craig's is a skilled, like I said, a high level communicator. And, we have a process here that we believe in terms of our evaluations, our process of scouting, and we're always going to try to stay true to that. I think I had just been there on the heels in Tennessee of coming in, and I'm not going to make this comparison to a player, but talking about trusting your evaluations, Kevin Byard was a non-combine guy out of Middle Tennessee that had high-level communication, was a smart guy. In the third round, it was Tennessee reached. And I'm not ever going to compare players, but comparing situations, it's a situation where a team trusted the board. I've had those scenarios in Carolina, Tennessee, New York, and that's what you want to believe in. And for us, regardless of what the perception on the outside is, what matters is what we think inside that room.
Thanks.
Next question, Doug Kide.
Hey, Ryan, hope you're doing well. You guys have been moving up and down the board a little bit today. Just wanted to know what the thought process was on some of those moves, taking out a pick, adding back a pick back in there.
Right. I think that's something that that's the fun part about the draft a little bit. And sometimes opportunities don't present themselves. There's always got to be two partners, right? There's got to be somebody willing to come up and somebody willing to go down. So what you try to do is just as best you can you get to a line of players that match the value on your board? And when we say that, sometimes it does say, I don't really feel great about this line of players at this pick. Can we get down to where we feel like there's the value matches as closely as possible to what we see or how we evaluated a player? So a lot of the times that becomes the reasons why you want to maybe move up and down. And that's another reason why having draft capital is important. It is currency within the draft to be able to move and either acquire players or acquire more picks to give you more swings at the plate. So that movement a lot of times is reflective of trying to match where you've placed value of these players on your board.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next question, Mark Daniels.
Hey Ryan, thanks for doing this.
Sure.
I'd say from free agency to the draft, it really seems like you guys have increased the talent level on the roster, and certainly the depth looks a lot better. How happy are you, with where this roster is at? And how would you say, just like, what's the optimistic level? How optimistic are you guys that the ship is sort of turning here?
Sure. Well, we hope that the talent levels increase. Otherwise, I think Mr. Kraft might say, "Well, what have you guys been doing for the last few months?" So, but that's our job, right? That's what we're tasked to do. And I think you're never set. You never settle. Like you can constantly chase. Like when we're done tonight, and after that we sign the post draft players, the first thing we're going to look at is tomorrow and Monday. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe wait till Monday. But we're going to look at it and say, where are we not good enough? Where did we not feel? Where do we not have enough depth? So it's an ongoing, constant, hard look and really focus on your roster and where do we got to get better at? And I know that probably sounds like kind of maybe cliche, but it is a real thing. And as soon as you think you're good enough in one position, you should probably take a look at it again because you're probably not. So and to the second part of your question, look, we're excited that we really are. I think from everything we've tried to do, from some of the personality and the energy into the building, trying to get to know each other as new staffs coming together, uh, empowering the people that were here to lean into them for their decisions. I can't thank, from my behalf, I can't thank the scouting staff enough, the college guys, the pro guys, the scouting assistants, the ops, the analytics group, our IT help. Like, it has been a lot that we've asked them to do that's different over these last couple months. And so just excited about how that path is going. And hopefully we can continue to add more and more to that.
Awesome, Ryan. Thank you.
You got it.
And we'll do 2 more questions here, starting with Karen Gerian.
Hi, Ryan. Again, we appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, I'm kind of piggybacking off of Mark, who sort of asked my question, but I'll ask it in a different way.
Should have let you go first then.
Mike would have. Anyway, I was just wondering, you've obviously mapped out a plan from the time you guys got here and formulated a plan through free agency and the draft, and I'm wondering how well you think that plan has been executed, and are you where you want to be right now heading into the 7th round?
Sure. Plans are something we all have, right? In different walks of life, there's always plans. And I think one of the biggest things you have to be able to do is deviate from the plan when it doesn't go accordingly. And reacting and moving in new spaces and being able to be fluid with everything we do, it's paramount. Because whether it's free agency and you feel you're as aggressive as possible in anything you can do, it's a player's choice where they want to go. And so a lot of times you may hear from the outside, well, I can't believe they didn't get this guy, or can't believe they didn't get that, when you've done everything in your power to make that happen, and the player has a choice. The free agent part of that isn't free for the club. It's the freedom of choice by the player. And so, we try to then to shift and move and constantly readjust those plans based on what happens and who we can acquire. And going into the draft, we have a plan. But again, you're at the mercy of the picks. We move around in the draft to try to get a line of players we choose. But you don't know where it's going to fall. You don't know who might go in front of you. You may think you've got it lined up and a guy goes just before you. And now you've got to be able to really react. So the old knees bent, head on a swivel, like, that is a real part. And I think we've tried to stick to some parameters of the plan when I go back to before about the people. So regardless if we aren't able to acquire a person that maybe we really wanted to, let's focus on making sure we're still getting the right people as we adjust.
Thank you.
You got it.
And final question here from Mike Reese.
Hey, Ryan, hopefully can end on a good one here.
Okay.
One of the interesting parts about just talking to you today, and also just what's happening with the Patriots, is you have sort of the new people coming in, Coach Vrabel, yourself, Stretch, melding with the people that were here, Elliot, Matt, Alonzo, Cam. And last night, Elliot told a little bit of a story at the start of the 2nd round, how you guys were talking about a couple players and there was a healthy dialogue, I believe was the way he described it. Ultimately, he said you didn't have to decide between 2 players because one of them got picked before, the player you picked at 38. So I guess my question to set it up is, what do you remember about that? Is that sort of a significant thing from your view in terms of how you guys came together, and just how do you view the melding of the two groups coming together?
Sure. Yeah, there's we've had these long relationships but when they're on the surface, and things change when you're actually working and day in, day out, the hours that this job requires, that changes than just knowing somebody on the fringes and on the surface and over, seeing them at the combine and all-star games, right? So that's been unique, and that's been something that I think we've both been intentional about trying to make sure that we go and take the steps necessary so that we can start to understand each other. And then get to come, you end up where you're so busy sometimes you can skip over things. I think through the process about, hey, well, let's make sure we both see this, or let's make sure we talk about that. And so I think the point he's making about the before the pick was really about one of those moments where there was a time element involved, right? Like the clock's ticking, a time element. There's some discussions. There's a couple players that involve really opinions from both sides. And what we say is, I want to lean into the opinions of the staff, whether that's Elliot, myself, Cam, Zoe, one of the college guys, Matt, like whatever that is, those opinions matter. I'm never going to have all the right answers, I can promise you. But I think collectively, when we put those thoughts and opinions together and are able to voice those and respect each other for where those opinions come from, I think that can get you to the right answer. And I think what happened last night was just an illustration of that in real time. And it was really good. I think it's a healthy thing. And I think in the end, what that does is it allows us to come to a consensus after listening to each other's opinions and understanding that you respect where those come from because of the work that's been put in by each of those individuals. Thanks, Mike.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it, and good luck with the rest of the night.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.